There's only two words to describe the Brazilian Grand Prix, and that is Lando, Alonso. The pair of them were absolutely fantastic this weekend, weren't they? And we'll get to them in a minute, but let's go through and rate each and every one of the drivers and how they got over the weekend. Starting with the winner, Max Verstappen. He started on pole and won the race. Wasn't his most comfortable race, was he? Lando Norris kept him honest in the early part, but thereafter that car just seemed to work well on all ranges of tyres, doesn't he? And it'll be scary what they will do with that car with upgrades, because they're the only ones that haven't bought upgrades on that car for some time. So it'll be scary to see what that car can do next year. But a 10 out of 10 for Max Verstappen for the race, and pretty much over the whole weekend he was pretty comfortable in what I thought would be one of the races where everyone else closed the gap significantly. Next up, his teammate Sergio Perez. A much better weekend for him in the race. He started 9th, still needs to sort out these qualifying issues, and then was finished 4th, just beaten by Fernando Alonso. With a cracking battle between the pair of them, wasn't it? He nearly nicked that podium place with a couple of laps to go. But yeah, an 8 out of 10 for Sergio Perez, just because it was more of where he should have been. Finally back on the podium in the sprint. Yeah, just missing out in the race. Ideally, we'd kind of want to see him to be fighting with Max Verstappen, but it seems he's got a bit of a step to go to do that. And the rating for Sergio Perez, I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. Next up is Lando Norris and the McLaren team. Lando was absolutely brilliant this weekend, didn't he? Put it on pole for the sprint race. Shame he couldn't grab that for Sunday's race. But he was the only one that was able to sort of keep with Max Verstappen all weekend. He was absolutely brilliant. I mean, had he been in the same machinery as Max, I was pretty sure he'd comfortably win this weekend. He was just absolutely on it from the get-go. Actually, for the first time we've actually seen someone race Max Verstappen. Actually got into the DRS zone, tried for the overtake. It's a shame that didn't come off, because it would have been absolutely brilliant to see some action and overtaking on Max while he's up in the front. But a brilliant job from Lando Norris. Don't know what more he could have done, but yeah, 10 out of 10 for him. Magnificent weekend overall. And then it comes his teammate Oscar Piastri, and he had a horrible race, didn't he? Suffered damage at the start. He ran over some debris on that car, and they were just really happy that he made it to the end, and good management from him. But yeah, he was the last of the runners, not really making any impact on the race. Yeah, I'm going to go for a 7 out of 10, just because I think I was quite harsh on him in the race review. And actually, given what the damage was, yeah, to finish, like they said, was a decent result. But he was overshadowed and outshadowed by his teammate all weekend. And then after Lando Norris and the McLaren team, I'm going to go with Fernando Alonso. He was fantastic, wasn't he? It was a shame that his sprint pace and that was a bit off, because actually on Sunday's grid they lined up 3rd and 4th, and he had a brilliant race in the end. Not the best starts, but then as the race kicked in, he was brilliant on the red flag restart, got the jump on Lewis Hamilton, and I think in turn that helped him keep and pass ahead of Sergio Perez for as long as he did. He's a master of doing this defensive sort of driving, isn't it? He was just left the other two to run off. I think that wasn't his race. He just managed his tyres, made sure he had enough tyres so he could keep Sergio Perez behind in the crucial corners down to turn 1 and then down to turn 4. Nearly thought he'd lost it, and then brilliant double DRS, first one to get right into Sergio Perez and force that sort of error a little bit for him to go defensive, and then again turn 4 round the outside of Sergio Perez to retain that 3rd place, and then to just beat him to the line was absolutely brilliant. He was the only one to try sort of this weird turning or line out of the final call, wasn't he? He was nowhere near the curb, and I think that was just to keep the car from unsettling and just getting a good run, good traction, and off he went, and just enough to keep that gap to Sergio Perez. Yeah, fantastic racing for Fernando Alonso. Has just shown what an absolute master he is, and it's just great to see him back fighting in them positions, because he's one of the few drivers that are able to do what he did there. I mean, brilliant tyre management, and just to keep probably the fastest car on the grid behind you for as long as he did, and then to repass it once it's got past. You know, normally most drivers lose the head a little bit and then that's it, the off the drivers go, but he was fantastic. Fernando Alonso, 10 out of 10 for him. And then his teammate Lance Stroll, and actually was a much better race weekend overall for Lance Stroll also, wasn't it? Finished in 5th, starting 3rd for the race, but went backwards a little bit, but he was much closer. And actually this is exactly where, you know, Aston Martin want him to be. You know, he's not the great driver Fernando Alonso is. We've kind of just got to accept that now, but to be in and within the mix and picking up points, crucial points for Aston Martin, is exactly what he needs. I'm going to go for a 9 out of 10 for Lance Stroll for this weekend. And then came the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, and he had a steady weekend overall, didn't he? A 6th place finish, started 7th. Yeah, he just couldn't catch Lance Stroll in the end. And their pace was, again, not fantastic, was it? They were never in the hunt for any chance of a podium, but a solid racing from him nevertheless. A 7 out of 10 for Carlos Sainz. And Charles Leclerc was an absolute disaster to see that car from lining up 2nd on the grid to just crash out on the formation lap due to hydraulics issues said at the time. Yeah, it just couldn't have got any worse for him. Didn't even complete 1 racing lap, so no rating for Charles Leclerc this weekend. He had a decent sprint, but again, nothing outstanding for him. And then comes the Alpine guys, and it's Pierre Gasly who finished 7th, and actually a pretty decent job from him, wasn't he? Started in 15th. Yes, there was a number of dropouts which helped him go up the field. But yeah, decent pace in that Alpine team. He beats his teammate Ocon. I'm going to go for an 8 out of 10 for Pierre Gasly. Ocon, he wasn't too happy with his race, was he? Despite him going from 14th to 10th, he picked up a point, but he was sort of like really disappointed, saying he kind of wanted a lot more out of this weekend. But I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10 for picking up some points. And on to the Mercedes boys. Lewis Hamilton, he started 5th, finished 8th. He had an absolutely horrible Brazilian Grand Prix, didn't he? Poor in the sprint race, poor in the race. They were just so hard on their tyres. A lot of head scratching going on, I'm sure, at Brackley about what's actually happened here to this Mercedes car. They all are pointing towards it just being going massively wrong with setup, rather than being something fundamental with the car, especially considering where they'd come from in Austin and Mexico. But yeah, really poor. Lewis Hamilton was just a sitting duck at the end of the sprint, and in the race he just didn't have any tyres at all, just sliding in the rear, chewing the tyres up, and yeah, he just couldn't wait for this car and this weekend to end, could he? 4 out of 10 for Lewis Hamilton. His teammate George Russell, he went out, retired on lap 56, had issues with overheating of the car, but again, same problems. They just were looking in the rear mirrors all throughout the race, weren't they? And he just, yeah, another poor weekend from him. 4 out of 10 for George Russell, considering he completed at least more than half race distance, but a weekend to forget overall for the Mercedes team. And next up is Yuki-san. He actually had a brilliant weekend, didn't he, overall? He had a good sprint race, finished in the points, and also on race day he started way down, 16th place and a 9th place finish in the AlphaTauri team. These guys have come out of nowhere a little bit, haven't they? Their car was just horrible. They were way down in the Constructors' Championship, and they look like the ones in the battle with Williams, don't they? With 2 races to go for that 7th place in the championship, but it's all to play for and all to fight for with them pair. But yeah, these two, Yuki and Daniel Rick, have been magnificent. But yeah, Yuki, fun points. I'm going to give him a 10 out of 10 just because overall over the whole weekend he was brilliant, and he beats his more experienced teammate. Coming to his teammate Daniel Rick, yeah, he was unlucky, wasn't he? He got caught up, really unlucky with the flying tyre which flew up and clipped his rear wing, didn't he? And that was effectively the end of his race. He was 1 lap down, I think, after red flag restart. He finished in 13th place. It's a shame, really, because, again, I think he wasn't too far off Yuki's pace, and the pair of them would have picked up some crucial points for the team. But it wasn't to be for Danny Rick. I'm going to go for a 6 out of 10 for him for this weekend. And then comes Logan Sargent, who finished 11th place for the Williams team. yeah, it's a shame he missed out on some points, but he was there or thereabouts. At least he wasn't running last for a change. Yeah, a little bit more pace in that Williams from him, and I'm sure he would have nicked some points. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10 for this weekend. It was a real shame for his teammate though, wasn't he? Out on lap 1, Alex Albon. Yeah, trying to go around the outside of the two Hasses, just got unlucky with the way the cars just lined up, clipped and out of the race. Yeah, he'll be disappointed because it looked like potential points for the Williams team. But you never know. A long way to go with just 2 races. Crucial battle coming up for him, especially because he's been the main guy in that Williams team, taking the fight and holding that P7. Let's see what he can do next time out in Vegas. I'm hoping it'll be a strong performance from him. But no rating for Alex Albon, sadly. I mean, he didn't even make it to turn 1, really, did he? And then comes the Haas team. It was a horrible weekend in the end for them, wasn't it, on race day? Double DNF, both Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen out on lap 1, caught up in the collision with Alex Albon, and effectively that was the end of their race. Yeah, they've just like gone on a bit of slope downhill, haven't they, Haas team, and they need a bit of luck in the next couple of races, pick up some points and actually just try and get on top of this car, which has even struggled since the upgrades. They haven't really quite either got on top of them or had the chance, I suppose, in Brazil to really make the most of them. No ratings for the pair of them, obviously, but yeah, they'll be hoping for more next time out in Vegas. And then finally comes the Alfa Romeo pair. Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu both had to retire their cars due to the team saying on safety grounds and issues with both of their cars. Yeah, it's been a horrible weekend for the team. No rating for the pair of them either. Yeah, and that's that for the driver ratings for the Brazilian Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso and Sergio Perez actually brought the race to life, didn't they? The pair of them with their driving. It was Lando Norris that brought the race to life early on with his battle with Max Verstappen. The middle of the part of the race was a bit of a letdown, wasn't it, in comparison to what we've seen in the sprint day. But if we had a mixture of the 2 races, I suppose, the start from Sunday's race, the sprint race in the middle section, and then the final battle that we've seen between Alonso and Perez, and overall I guess we just got to be happy with the racing that we got. It probably wasn't an absolute classic, the Brazilian Grand Prix, but I think you forgot that middle part with the way the ending happened with Perez and Alonso. The pair of them just, you know, couldn't be split. Absolutely fantastic racing from both of them. Yeah, and Lando Norris, fantastic all weekend. But yeah, thanks for watching. Watch out for the race preview of the Las Vegas Grand Prix coming up middle of next week. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment as always. I'll see you next time.